But we will kick off now because it is a minute past 7:32 when I said we would start then. So welcome to Beyond the Collar, everybody. My name is Natalie, and this is Mary, who on my screen is to the left of me, but on yours may be somewhere else. We are co-slaves to the same master, Master Joshua, who is going to be behind the camera today.
Hi.
He is working on setting up the other cameras, which is what I'm going to go into next. So Beyond the Collar is also recorded and is streamed on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm telling you all this because we don't want anyone to stray away from communicating and processing with us verbally. We will not say your name, your picture, or your face will not be recorded onto any of these streaming platforms. It will only be your voice. So please don't let that keep you from being here with us and sharing and adding to the conversation. If that's still, you don't want to verbally share, you can use the chat, and that's always available. So we will also have Master Joshua, who will be talking here and there and answering the questions here and there. Read the responses from the chat in Zoom as well as on the other streaming platforms. So we will start recording.
In progress.
Thank you, Mary. So Mary and I started Beyond the Collar 5 months ago. She came to me and it was inspired by Uncover Conversations, a talk that is actually held at 9 p.m. And we felt that it was necessary for submissives or S-types to have time to share and to talk and to process and to have space. So within Uncovered Conversations, there is a removal of the cover. Within Beyond the Collar, we don't want to remove our collars. It feels not right. So what we came to is that we, Mary and I, have the privilege of wearing our collars 24/7. So if there are people within this call today who don't have the privilege or ability to express their submission, and whether it's wearing a collar or wearing a pup hood and barking, I would love that. But in any way, shape, or form that you want to express your submission, here is the time. And now I will also go into what will be new within Beyond the Collar. As I just said, Beyond the Collar was made for submissives to have the space to talk and chat and to process and to take in new information from one another. Next month, we will be joined by our master, Master Joshua. The space will still be the same in regards to submissives having a safe space to talk and chat. But in order to expand our conversation and to move forward and to create a more well-rounded understanding of power exchange, BDSM, etc., we thought that it was necessary to have a dominant perspective added. So the questions for next week are tailored towards both dominants and submissives, and I'm really looking forward to it, to having Master Joshua behind the camera and to having a more inclusive conversation. So this topic for today is the mind-body-spirit connection within submission. And we will go through the 5 questions that we normally do, and please feel free to unmute or ask to unmute. That's another thing that I forgot to mention, is we had some fun people come and join our calls a couple of weeks ago, so unfortunately the ability to unmute yourselves is something that we have to grant you. But please you can just a little button, you can push ask to unmute, and we will have you come and join us. So at any time, any question. So anything that I missed, Mary?
No, that was perfect.
Cool. Master Joshua, any words?
No, ma'am.
Awesome. So we should start with the first question then. Define presence. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Go
Define presence. What does it mean to you, Mary?
I knew that was coming. Define presence. I think presence can be a couple of things. Do you guys all love when I do that? I just take the word and I slash it into a bunch of different definitions. Presence, for me, is being able to show up authentically, like when you're with people you care the most about. I think it's clearing your mind, all of the day's frustrations, all of the collective things at the door to the best of your ability. Because I think, like, when your mind is all boggled, like you're unable to be present into your conversations, whether they're vanilla in nature or they're on the more kinky side of the house. I don't know what presence means. I think it's a couple. It's like physically showing up and being present. Like, I think that there's value in sharing space, whether you are conversing or it's in silence. Like, I think that there's just an energy that's in the room, and that can be presence. But then I come back to that same. I think it has to be a mixture of being there, with your soul energy, and then allowing your mind to kind of embody that same presence and that in relation to both things. I don't know. Like, my mind's like, it wants to say 95 different things, but I think that that's the most connected, I feel, to one of those answers. So what about you, Nat?
No, I totally agree with the whole mind wanting to say 95 different things and trying to simplify it so that it makes sense. For me, presence is the choice to be in the here and now. And by being in the here and now, presence to me takes into account the possible future and what has already happened in the past, and kind of accepts it as a connection to what is happening in the present. I think that presence is acceptance, is giving yourself grace completely, 100%, being still yet ready and on your toes to be able to run in any direction, 360. Kind of like an owl. Being able to turn their head to see all of the options. Honoring the forward, the front, and the back, say as I go side to side, front and the back, and then the possibilities of what the sides could come or be.
Could you repeat the question?
Define presence. What does it mean to you?
I like what you said, though, about, because when your first statement was, it's about being in the here and now, and as present in, like, your whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got instantly sad for a sec, and I was like, how much presence do I actually have without overthinking? Mm-hmm. Like, how present am I? Because I know I've been present, right? But how long can I stay present without letting my mind run? And, like, I'm curious now with that reflection how unpresent I become when I get, like, disconnected. And it's funny because, like, disconnection to me as well, like, inside my body, it's only happening with me, but, like, the external, right? Like, I don't know. I'm wondering if that's why I'm having such a hard time, like, well, how do you put it into words? Like, I'm overthinking the idea of what presence is, and I think you captured it beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, I think when you said that, I was trying to think if there was a difference between presence, like embodying presence versus being present, and I'm not really sure.
And maybe they're two separate things.
Exactly. Right? That was just what I was like, oh, I wonder. And here we are having this conversation.
Here we are just chatting.
Do we have any in the chat?
I actually need you to send me the link.
I literally, okay, yes,
We
master.
do have.
So there is something in the chat, Mary. Could you please read it?
Sure. So,
Let's send it to.
someone said, I feel like it's being mindful of the moment and what's in front of me in that moment. For sure. That's like that emotional mindfulness, like that type of presence. But also being, I like the word mindful. I'm going to put that in my pocket for later. Because I'm sure that's going to come up a lot. Being intentional. Absolutely. What else are you guys thinking? How else do you define presence? And I'll share too, like Natalie said, we monitor the chat, like, and I understand, and there's like, there are individuals that can't immediately process. So if this answer comes to you throughout the evening and like we hit a question, you're like, oh, that's what presence is, like, please continue to share. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied to the question that we're
100%.
on.
And I forgot to mention earlier in the beginning that beyond the caller, Mary and I's conversations are all mostly reflective based. There's no right answer. Mary and I feel like we kind of leaned into it, but I feel sometimes I change my answer from the first question changes by the end of the fifth question, the end of the call.
Oh my god.
Or it shifts.
Like, yes.
And I'm like, oh, I guess I really didn't know what I meant.
We've had topics that change just the trajectory of what I think. Like, you all have changed that, so.
Yes. And this topic even
did
more
Master
so.
weigh in on that question that we asked?
I'm sorry?
Did Master want to weigh in on the presence?
I was present here trying to get the Zoom on the iPad just now.
What did that look like?
Yeah, I was very focused. I was very focused and very stressed. I think you guys hit it right on the nail on the head. There's not much I can add to that.
We'll take it this week, but next week you must have an answer for the first question.
You gotta do the whip. You gotta do the whip.
So we should go to the next question. Sorry, everybody. What's the next question?
It is, do you tend to lean on or favor either your mind, body, or spirit when engaging in submissive protocols, rituals, or tasks? Does this differ from your vanilla everyday life?
Would you like me to go first? So, I wrote the questions for this month, including this topic. And when I wrote this question, I was thinking about this song that I've been listening to since I was, for 10 years. And one of the lyrics is a question. And it asks, does the body rule the mind or does the mind rule the body? I don't know. And he answers it right away. And then I'm like, what a stupid question. And then the next lyric is, tell me why and I'll spit in your eye. Tell me why and I'll die. And I'm like, well, yes, this makes sense because it's redundant. It's like, shouldn't they work in synchrony? So why are you asking me, does the mind rule the body or does the body rule the mind? Like, what kind of question is that? Or they should, in my opinion, work 50-50, but that doesn't always mean that that when I'm participating in tasks or protocol or rituals, that I'm going in with knowing that I'm putting 33% in I have 33% focus in my mind and feeling it 33% in my body and honoring my spirit 33% of the time. So anyway, that's a little backstory for why I wrote this question. It's more of like a reflection on what you go into protocol, what you go into ritual, what you go into tasks with. I don't have many rituals negotiated within my dynamic, nor do I participate in many. If any, we participate in rituals in... The only rituals that I can really think of is when we prepare for playtime. And that doesn't always look the same each time, but I go in with the same mentality and I go in with the same, like I can sink into what the steps need to be done before we can play. Whether it's setting up the space or setting up my body or preparing for that, I go in with a more reliance on my spirit and my ability to go with the flow, to prepare, because I've done it so many times before. But then when I thought about that, I was like, oh, well, if I go with the flow and if I rely on my spirit, then my mind and my body kind of just sink into place. In regards to other protocols or tasks, especially, another ritual is setting up the space for an event, or putting it back to the way it was beforehand. And there's always, that also in a way is a ritual, although I do rely on my body memory to propel me into that submissive headspace, which then ultimately, again, feeds into more of a spirit and mind connection. But I do rely on my body to remember more than my mind in those particular situations. I try to allow my mind to take over sometimes, because I know that I rely on my body to keep me afloat more than my mind, especially in the morning. I have a difficult time with starting the day with more mindful activities or tasks. So if I'm struggling with that, I always try to do something that is a little more physical, even if that means just like today I had a difficult morning. So even if that meant right before I left the house, I could just see, okay, the laundry needs to be folded. Let me go put my body into this, and then let my mind kind of reconnect. And my spirit and my submission to just kind of feel a little bit more fulfilled before I go out and do other things. If that makes sense.
How about the second part? Does it differ from your everyday life?
No. I mean, I don't have many rituals in terms of everyday vanilla life. So I do rely on my body and my body memory to propel me and moment me into a space where I'm able to acknowledge what my mind is saying and what my spirit is propelling me forward into. So no, it doesn't differ that much.
I like what you shared. I've been sitting, and I love hearing your perspective and like reading the chat too, because it's like everything I want to say kind of like shifts, right? Like maybe I don't want to say it like this. When I think of mind, body, and spirit, I think of my body as a vessel, and like my mind and spirit are like my two primary things that like I am focused on, at least in the dynamic of service. Similar to Natalie, I don't have protocols or rituals. When I am in service, it's more task oriented, and so it's more my mind is able to shut off because my spirit is telling me I'm needed, and so like I can really like focus. And like when I think of presence, like I am present in service, washing the dishes, going and prepping things. Like it's almost like that's my energy, my fuel for why I chose submission and like what really brought me to it. But if I was to sit back, I don't know that I'm always mindful or favoring my mind, because a lot of the time I fold, right? Like I fold inward, and if I'm thinking more like just general life, I need to be more present of where my mind is. Just because like I know when my body feels bad, of like if I'm conversating or I'm having an instance where like I'm not feeling seen or not feeling heard, and it's like my body physically feels bad, and I don't think I've ever took a moment to realize how those three things are connected. And it's like if I don't wake up and my body's not in a good spirit, like my head, my soul, like, right, like how I'm going to express the day is slightly altered because I'm in this like forward. it's so hard. It differs for me because when I'm in service, my mind is free. When I am in everyday life, I am on 24/7. And I think that play and other things are my break, like to turn my brain off. And so like the exhaustion overfills like my body. But my spirit is like whole, right? Like I feel whole as a person because it's my source of truth. It's what I've desired, is what I want to be. But it's so straight. Like I can really play the both sides of. I don't know that I'm necessarily like it's the same for me because of how aware I'm always am. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's just like where I'm landing with this right now.
Well, vice versa, I enjoyed hearing you process that as well.
So there's stuff in the comments. Can I read them?
Please.
I tend to lean more in my spirit while performing for my dom. I really feel like it's a chore in my everyday vanilla life because I'm less appreciated and seen for my efforts. Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind. You can hear me there. Okay, all right. Anytime I have a protocol for playtime, it's different. It's a different mindset, but a spiritual set as well. And then there's another one that says, I would say it depends on the activity. There's another comment that says, for me, having my body go on remote during tasks will quiet my mind and fulfill my spirit. And there's another one that says, I really appreciate the depth of emotions and perceptions that kink explores. Could I jump on to
Absolutely.
some of that? Mm-hmm. So, I had some nerve pain a few months ago at this point. And what I realize now, listening to you guys process this, is the only time I'm present in my body is when I'm in pain. Mm. And only then am I present in my body. More so I'm present in my surroundings, like where I'm at, taking in where I'm at, but am I not aware of what's happening in my body? How you guys define presence, I agree with. I mean, there wasn't much to add to that. But that awareness just makes me realize, also because I don't bottom often. As much as I want to bottom, I don't bottom. I've had the luck of bottoming more and more as time goes on, but for all that time up until that point, right, I don't have a relationship with that. So being present in my body is also, I'm learning new things about myself through the experiences of bottoming and submitting in certain roles. And then when it comes to do I tend to lean mind, body, or spirit, I think with submission it's more, it starts with body. And I guess the intention sets the spirit, right, of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But the mind, I don't know, I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I would have to agree with the mind. Like, that's the piece for me that is a bit. Like, is it mindfulness? Is it mindfulness of emotions, of thoughts, of logistics? What does that look like? I feel like for me personally, within submission, and I think you said this, Mary, as well, I try to shut off my mind as much as possible. But what does, from the outside looking in, how does mindful submission look versus submission that is more body and spirit relied on? Like there is mindfulness for me is always around and always present. But I guess it's more so, again, my ability to be able to see 360, which is not always the case. And there's also that frustration there that I know that I can see, or I have high expectations for myself when I've done it before. And then once that starts, once my strictness towards myself comes out, then I even lose more of my vision. So
no, but even what you said, and Lucky, we'll click on you in one moment, but what you said, Natalie, was so impactful, because you said, what would mindful submission like look like? And I think for me, the absence of myself, right? Like, I'm putting myself all the way back, and it becomes about everybody else. And I think that through that interpretation, it's almost like I'm being mindful by the absence, right? Of like removing me from the equation. Yeah. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but you know, like that's what I was thinking of. Like, I think it can be interpreted both ways.
Yeah.
Lucky, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just about to kind of say something similar to you. Is like, when in submission, my mind is focused on the power exchange. It's focused on releasing and allowing the situation to encapsulate my spirit and body. And I feel like the more I can remove that mind aspect of it, the deeper into submission I can actually be. And really allowing my true nature, like Natalie was saying, to really come through, right? My ultimate desire to give you my spirit and body. And I think it comes to a deeper level on that intellectual basis, where someone's taking your mind in submission in that BDSM, like mental BDSM, where then it becomes like it's a different activity at that point, because your mind is what's actually being seized at that moment then, right? Because it's a different, so now they got a hold on your mind. So I think it really depends on the activity, but in like day-to-day or just normal submissiveness, I think my mind would be more focused on allowing the situation. And then when in certain type of activities, it's however my mind needs to go, whether it's going to be broken, or it's going to be mind fucked, or it's going to, whatever it might be. So yeah, I really like the question. I think there's some synchronized though. I like how she said at first, like they fall into one another. They're cascading. But I liked also too, Mary, that you said if one is out of sync, it's all out of sync. Like your body can't be sick and you're going to give your best spiritual self or your best, whatever. So yeah, that's my tip.
Thank you, Lucky, for sharing. It made me, actually, I had a bunch of thoughts and while you were sharing, I think what I'm realizing, or maybe realizing, what I think could be the piece for me is that the mind piece of the mind-body-spirit connection is preparing the mind for whatever task needs to be done in terms of physical and intention, spirit. So preparing the mind for that and allowing, also saying to the mind, okay, this is what we're doing and it's time to let everything else go for now. So I think it's maybe a preparedness piece.
I like that a lot. And like, I want to bring it back to something that you had said of like, what does it look like? Like, what is the visual when all of those things align, right? Like when we think of mind, body, and spirit. And I know that for some, I don't know like that everyone can reach that, right? Or like when that does, but I know like internally, like when my brain shuts off and all I can do is be focused and be present, and my body, I don't have to worry about the pain. I don't have to worry about, turning a certain way or being flexible. And my spirit is full, right? Like that wholesome feeling. Like I think, like I would visualize like the bright star, right? Of like you've checked all the boxes, got all the coins in Mario Kart, right? Like it's all like that winning moment, because and I really genuinely feel that's when you can be spiritually so like you're almost like gratuitous of like, oh my God, like this is amazing, like, and it's like that that floaty sensation, right? And like that leads into your subspace, and like I think that those are the things that I'd be curious of, if that's how that all aligns, and like that's how you can achieve what that subspace is because you've allowed your body to go into that mind, body, spirit. Like,
Yes. Master Joshua?
There's a comment. It says, mind. I try to increase attention while decreasing words in my mind. Listen instead of speak.
Yes, that's very well put. Listen to do instead of listen to think before you do. That's kind of what I think is also very helpful in terms of identifying what slavery is to me, which we will do next week on Beyond the Call. MS versus DS. Look at that. Slid right in. Anyway.
and funny enough, Natalie, I just saw the next question, and I promise you, like, that was not me.
I was like, oh my gosh, look at her lead
part.
into it.
Well,
No shame.
no shame. Do it in life.
So, the next question. Do you believe that your mind-body-spirit connection is correlated to how you experience subspace and or subdrop? If so, how? And Mary kind of led us into that unintentionally. And we've been talking about subspace, and we talked about subdrop last week. And after talking about subspace the first week or the second week of this month, and now talking about the mind-body-spirit connection, I think I wouldn't necessarily redefine what subspace is to me, and to clarify what subspace is to me and kind of reiterate what I said during our call a couple weeks ago. For me, it's that feeling of euphoria from the ultimate surrender of submission. And I think that subspace for me cannot be attained unless I am present, unless I am choosing to be present. I feel like I can't fall into presence. Like, I feel like there are moments where I'm like, wow, I feel very present today. And it feels like I fell into it, but I don't think that's always the case. I think there are steps that I've taken to reach presence that I'm unaware of. So I do think that, for me, subspace is, yes, the ultimate surrender and that euphoric feeling that is derived from that surrender, but also the ability to choose to be present, to be here, and to allow for the mind, body, and spirit to work in synchrony. Master Joshua is raising his hand from behind me.
No, it's funny because as you're talking, what I realize is I may be dropping today from my sensation yesterday with Karma, how I needed to be in my body, and she helped by light touch. And what I realized with that is, in order for me to access that, I need to be present in my body. I need to feel exactly and allow what's going on through sensation, for me to acknowledge it and let it and experience it. And mind, body, yeah, I think they absolutely, having not a lot of experience as a person who's been in subspace, I had to go in with the intention of being present and allowing myself to not think about anything. Like, I had to intentionally do that. So I guess that was my connection with my mind, body, spirit, was I need rest, I need energy, I need to be touched, I need to be relaxed. And that's what it did to me. And it messed me up, man. I was a drowsy mess for the remainder of the day. I was not in a good, I was exhausted until the mentorship program part. And then, like, I had a slow start in that. And then by the end of it, I was still drained. I was wiped. So yes, short answer, yes.
They're correlated.
They're correlated.
Excellent. Mary?
I feel like I'm going to contradict myself, so guys don't judge, okay? But if I took this and I said I can either be mind, body, spirit, right? This connection can happen in subspace, or I can have this every day in like real life, like everyday life. I think I would give up like the subspace aspect of it. Like I wish I could achieve this in everyday motion, right? Like I wish I could wake up and like my brain feels good, my body is like I'm a midget, I'm going. But if I focus on what the question is, right? Is yes, I do. I think as I was talking this out before I saw the question, I was alluding to the idea I would love to just like watch myself in like what mind, body, spirit connection looks like. And then like really reflect on, is it the heightened sensation of being able to achieve it? And is the subspace the grief of losing it? And then to your call out, Natalie, like that then shifts everything that I've known about subspace and subdrop because of that illusion, right? Of, well, if I can achieve it, then what prevents me from achieving that every morning, right? Like, why can't I reach those things independently? And I think when we were talking about subspace, somebody said, like, can I be in subspace and not have somebody bring me there? And I think that if we can like crack the code of ourselves, I think you can absolutely achieve it. And I think it's like it's the blend of surrender and the presence of freedom that you're allowed to just exist in nature, right? And you remove societal norm, you remove everything else out of it, and you make it independent about you. There's a piece of me that argues it's not only correlated to your subspace and subdrop, but it's what are you not introspectively thinking on that's preventing you from achieving it? And like, granted, I don't want this to sound like, oh, Mary, it's like you flip a switch and like you feel this way. I get it. Like it's not that easy. But, and I think there's ideas of like bad days and other things that add to things, but how do you achieve that presence and that connection with yourself in order to get there?
Yes.
As you guys are talking about it, I've got two ideas because how I achieved it, it left a certain feeling in my body. And if I'm able to recreate feelings in my body through either concentration or the next thought that came to mind is a scent, attaching a scent to the time you're in subspace. So like if it was lavender, and every time you went into subspace, we introduced lavender right into it, right? So that you have a connection with something external from your body that can trigger the space. So with that, that's something I'm going to try.
Interesting. It sounds like a hypnosis sort of.
Like the body remembers best through smell.
No, 100%.
So it's like, imagine if we can, because I think you can.
Yeah.
I absolutely think you can trigger that feeling. I also agree with what Mary was saying in regards to the absence of that freedom, because every time, right after my scenes as a bottom, I would say to myself, why can't I experience this feeling all of the time? And what do I need to do to get there? And why? Then comes the do I not deserve it? Right? But yeah. So thank you for saying that. That's got my mind running.
Well, that also makes me think of when we were talking about subdrop. It's like, how do you mitigate subdrop? And somebody, I think it was Lizzie, said, well, sometimes I lean into it. I lean into the feelings. And what if mitigating subdrop for you is just shifting the perspective of, okay, if the achievement of subspace, if subspace is the achievement and subdrop is the grief of that achievement and the not having it anymore, and shifting your perspective to, well, how can I attain it, rather than, oh my God, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah. That's
I feel like another mitigation technique, or less of a like, well, let me help myself get through this with, not saying that like, because I do it too, like I said, we were talking about subdrop. It's like, well, let me go get my favorite food and make me feel comfortable. Like, instead of how do how can I make myself feel comfortable through this grief? How can I make myself experience this grief a little bit less the next time?
Can I read some comments?
Yes.
I think my mind has to be connected with my subspace because I need to be in the right mindset, and my spirit follows from the full trust I have in my Dom. I think my body has to do with my subdrop because I notice I'm super cold and shaking pretty bad until he holds me and adds pressure until I stop. I have to have some kind of weight when I'm dropping. Someone else says, I call Mondays manic Mondays because that's usually when the drop slowly starts. And then there was some compliments on the correlation between scent and subspace, which we're gonna try, man.
100%.
We're gonna try.
I participate in EMDR, and in EMDR therapy, and the first ask is that you find a safe space. And usually it's imagery, but for me, imagery didn't work because I would always associate an image with some sort of emotion, and then I get to this like melancholy state, and it again would not turn into a safe space. So I actually use this essential oil and a scent that is my safe scent that I return to whenever it becomes too not comfortable or safe. So anyway, yes.
But you know what's interesting? As you guys were all sharing, what I heard in all of what was shared was that when you're going into subdrop, your mind is disconnected at that point. Like you aren't aligned, right? Like, because you're automatically into that overthinking. I don't deserve it. Why am I here? What is happening? Like, but then, like you said, Natalie, like if you just lean and said, okay, why do I feel like I don't deserve it? Like, what if we posed it like that? Because then I think you start addressing more shit than you didn't even want to touch on. Like, but I'm curious, like, if you lean and you have, like, that ugly booger cry, like Lizzie was saying, like, you have that moment of just release, how quickly you come back into who you are. Right? Like, the quicker I just let it go and I just say, okay, you're here, like, let's move and let's keep functioning. I'm baffled by, like, the degree of difference I feel on subspace and subdrop now. Because, and like, when I think about safety, like, I have a baby blanket that I've had that reminds me of my grandmother, and I've had it ever since I was born, and I am a grown woman, 33, and this blanket can bring me back to the source of my little girl, like that little version of me. And as we were all talking about that, I made all those connection points. It's like, wow, in order for me to feel like mind, body, spirit connected, the little person in me has to not be on defense. And when I have my blanket, it's my sense of safety of, I'm okay, I'm allowed to be present, and I can feel. Like, I'm just in awe. Let's read some more comments.
Next comment. I carry lavender oil often and will sniff or rub my wrist to calm down if I am feeling hyper. If I do hit that crying stage, I'm so quick to recover. I felt like I was a disappointment until he told me to not hide my face, and held me. I'm usually quick to recover, and I feel like all the pressure is off of me.
Thank you, everybody. I feel like we always, Mary's the person usually says this, but do you want to throw some hearts? We're having a very wonderful and open-hearted conversation. So if you ever want to just throw some hearts out, much appreciated for everybody being so open and honest and vulnerable, as always.
I have some more comments.
Yes.
I wonder if it has to do with trust. In subspace, I'm in a space of complete trust. I have entrusted my Dom to have my safety, mind, body, and spirit, and hold it all together. Once I have to take that back, I have to trust myself to keep that synchronicity, and the issues that happen there are, a lot. LOL. And then we have, I always thought subdrop came from the release of all the endorphins that were created. This is why it's stronger after play. How can we avoid that altogether? Abstain from playing.
yeah, literally.
And then not because you're going to drop from that drop.
Cultivating presence, maybe.
Yeah. That's tough. That's a good one.
There was one more, I think, right? No? I wonder. Did you read that one?
Yeah, that was the first
Oh,
one.
you read that one? Okay, sorry. Came after me. Should we go to the next question? We have
10,
not
12
that much
minutes.
time.
Are you gonna read it?
Sure. What about your submission, whether in a dynamic or not, makes cultivating presence challenging? What helps to make it easier? Would you like me to go, Mary? Pastor Joshua wants to go.
I'll
Pastor
go first.
Joshua.
Structure. Tell me what I need to do. Tell me where I need to be. Tell me what you need from me so I can start delivering in service. It's like so I can be present. I can be mindful of what I'm doing. But lead. Right away. Lead.
Yes. I didn't even think of that one, but yes.
Yo, listen.
That's why you're here. Pastor Joshua, 2 steps ahead of the game. For me, I feel like it's a double-sided coin. Like, what makes cultivating presence challenging? Not being in service in real life 100% of the time, like me going out and doing things that are not really associated with my submissive headspace and in correlation to my dynamic. But then also I feel that it makes being present even easier in some cases, to have a life clearly defined outside of my power exchange, so that I can go and I can remind myself of my other facets and the other parts of myself that ultimately create the wholeness of me. So not being here 24/7 and working 24/7 towards the mission of my master, and also I do need to do my other things at the same time. So double-sided coin for me.
Okay, I'm gonna break it down. Like 3 different things are what makes presence challenging. Distance, not being in service, that's the thing. And then like I came down to the ultimate decision of like I make it challenging. And I want to say being in service and being calculative is like it is awful. I think that if I broke down each of those things, distance is hard in presence. Just because you're absent of it, I don't think it erases the safety, but it takes away from the everyday structure. I think that Master Joshua covered that pretty well. It's the structuring of what that dynamic is, and if you're not in that headspace all the time, it's sometimes hard to like return. In that same breath, being calculative. Like when I think about presence, it's like I think we said like doing the math. I do the math a lot, and then like I'll often ask for less, or like, oh, it's cool, like don't stress it, like. And like I let a lot of things slide that I think that if I just took a moment and just said like, hey, like here's all the things, like I don't have to do the work. And I think that if I'm restoring back my mind, body, spirit, like that's the place I have to get to with that. Like I'm trying to think of like the yin and the yang, like what makes that easier? And it's communicating, it's talking, it's sharing the difference, right? Like, or the feeling. And when I come down to like myself, I think that I'm not going to surprise anyone, but like I think we're all incredibly hard on ourselves when we think about processing from a grander scheme. And it was funny, I was doing reflection on like what is the type of slave I want to be versus the type of slave I am, and I wrote this journal entry a year ago, and so I revisited again as like a current, and it's almost like that inner frustration. And I think the more introspective work that you do, and the more time you focus on the healing aspects, that's also service, and like ensuring that you're caring for yourself in that mind body spirit connection also
Taking care of the property.
Mhm.
I loved how you said very straightforward. I make cultivating presence more difficult because I'm like, yes, I am actually the biggest like roadblock in between presence and not being present and being all over the place. 100%.
We have Lizzie with her hand up.
Yes, Lizzie.
Hey.
Hey.
So, right now, one of the things that I'm struggling the most with is my scheduling has changed, and I always make sure Sir has something to eat for dinner, and I prefer to be there when that happens. And now, a few of my shifts I'm working evenings, so I'm not home for dinner time. So that's something that like I'm aware of. That bothers me. Like I don't feel like I can, that cultivating presence that fits into that, and so now I'm learning like, okay, make dinner ahead of time so that he has dinner ready for him. All he has to do is warm it up, kind of thing, and that helps a little bit. Another thing, like with our DS dynamic, is sometimes I have this little ADHD brain that's going a million miles a minute, and sometimes it just doesn't want to shut up. Like it just keeps going. So counting is like something that takes a lot of work and time and patience between the two of us. But he will count, and that will help rein me in. Ritalin works very well. And also, we're talking about self-care. Something happens to me psychologically when I'm out in nature. I drive for a living, so I will constantly be watching the clouds. And so that will, that it has an almost spiritual component to it, or it grounds me, it makes me feel present. There's a calming effect, or being around really pretty things and taking the moment while I'm working to take photographs of those things and capture those moments, and then be able to take them home and say, look what I saw today, and share them. Those are a couple of things that I do.
I love when you share, Lizzie. Thank you.
There's a comment. Can I read it?
Yes.
My submission is hard when there's a large gap between communication, tasks given, and not being in service. What helps it is having daily or weekly tasks given to keep me busy while they're busy. I'm a third in a married couple's total power exchange dynamic. And then I'm my biggest critic.
Yes.
I hear that. Do we want to wrap the fifth question? Or do we want to save it? Do we want to come back to it? I know we're almost at time.
Why don't we answer it very quickly and simply as much as we can?
Yeah.
I say as we both are processing. And
What's the question?
how has submission helped you to build more awareness around your ever-changing mind-body-spirit connection?
Say it one more time.
How has submission helped you to build more awareness around your ever-changing mind-body-spirit connection?
Needs and wants. Every time I get to submit, it makes me more of what I'm missing or more of what I'm needing for balance.
For me, I think allowing myself to serve and to put myself aside has allowed me to look at myself from almost like a saran wrap or like piece of glass POV, and it's given me the ability to see. Selflessness has given me the ability to see the guts of myself more so.
Yeah, I would say surrender has shown me my capabilities, and that I can continue to get there even if the day has like proven to me otherwise, like as or so if I feel that, but that I can always come back to a place of that full alignment of where I need to be and where I feel the closest to my home, right? Like my home feeling. Well, all.
Wait. I think I just uncovered something. I think because I'm sitting here thinking, listening, is I didn't get a lot of affirmations and validation growing up as a kid. Because if my responsibility is to get certain grades, that's my responsibility. So why do I need a pat on the back if I'm doing my job? I think the desire to access submission is to introduce validation and affirmations into my life to say, yes, you are doing a good job. Because I don't get that, right? I don't get that working for myself. I don't get that that level of affirmation from my output, and then from the affirmations I do get from people close to me, I'm tainted with, well, that's expected. You're supposed to tell me that, right? So it doesn't carry the same word as something that I can see that I've done, that a person who's tasked me to do it sees it's done and it's acceptable and they say, good job. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing and processing that with us. So that's exactly 8:30 on the dot. We somehow got here. Thank everybody for sharing and for processing with us and for opening yourselves. It's crazy how much energy I start off the call with, being very low and tired from my day, and how much I end with. It's actually pretty ridiculous. It's I don't need any coffee, and that's a lot coming from me and my mouth. So next week is the first week of September. So Master Joshua will be joining us behind the camera, giving us the dominant perspective. And the topics, like I said, and the questions are tailored to both dominants and submissives. And also, in a way, we're gonna, as Master Joshua has been sharing the past couple of weeks, he has a submissive side, and Mary and I also have a dominant side. So you're going to be able to hear and listen to us explore not only our submissiveness, but our growing chosen dominance.
Call me MJ. Call me MJ. That's too formal as Master Joshua stuff.
All right, MJ.
Like Mary Jane, but Spider-Man. You get it?
Yeah, we could also. Right. I mean, it's Joshua's too unformal.
Yeah, listen, watch your mouth.
So anyway, the best Joshua, MJ will be on the camera. And next week, the topic is MS and DS, definitions and differences. It's gonna be fun.